Good evening, everybody. My name is Robert Nance. Today I'm going to go over a somewhat controversial topic, but something that is just as important. It is the topic of firearm safety. For my persuasive speech tonight, I am hoping that my listeners will realize and be persuaded that firearm safety is the number one thing you should have if you do own a firearm or you actually plan on owning a firearm in the future. My topics for tonight, I'm going to be going over the importance of firearm safety, as I said earlier. I'm going to be covering some national statistics of some unfortunate events and some gun owning statistics offline. I'm also going to be going over proper storage, so how you should store your firearms whenever you're not using them. And I'm also going to go over some handling tips to use on the range whenever you're out there actually shooting your firearms. First off, as I said, I'm going to cover importance of firearm safety. Improper use of firearms can be dangerous and even deadly. There is astounding evidence on news, you hear all the time, that some kid got into their father's drawer or got in their father's dresser, pulled a gun out and shot themselves or somebody. I actually had a friend when I was in third or fourth grade, Urban, he was in third or fourth grade, I believe. He would have had to have been somewhere around 9 or 10. He was playing with his twin sister at their grandfather's house on a Christmas Eve. They actually grabbed the drawer and found his old revolver. And long story short, they were playing around with it a little bit. There was an accidental discharge, and he shot his sister straight to the chest. And like I said, it was about 10, 15 years ago. So from what I remember, I believe she died right on the scene. There was nothing they could do for her. So that is something that can absolutely be detrimental to a family. But my next point on the topic is firearms can actually be a very safe and enjoyable hobby. I do it myself. I've received firearms training from my time in the Navy, and it's something ever since I've had a blast doing. My wife and I will take our pistols and our rifles shooting sometimes, and she enjoys it as well. Concealed carry protects individuals, obviously. That's another benefit of carrying a firearm. I conceal carry myself, and my wife, she feels a lot safer when we're out in town and out and about running random errands throughout the day. And also, one of the most important reasons I got a firearm. Firearms can protect your household. In the event you have a home intruder in your house, somebody who has the worst intents in mind for your family, you have a line of defense for yourself to protect your family. A little bit of national statistics, an estimated 297 million Americans own firearms. In 2010, there was 606 unintentional deaths from accidental firearms discharge, which 1,300 of those victims were under the age of 25. And it's estimated that 8% of unintentional shootings occur with children under the age of 8. So once again, that is something I would like to reiterate. That's a very important part of owning a firearm is firearm safety. As what you need to have at all times is be cognizant of where your firearm is, if it's loaded, unloaded, and where it's at all times. Proper storage. So this is going to be, as I said earlier, more of where to safely store your firearms when they're not in use. Typically people go for locked cabinets or drawers. That's probably one of the cheapest methods you can do. Just buy a little cheap lampstand with a drawer on it, lock it away, keep the key away from your kids, and you've got a safe firearm right there. A little more people go for safes or gun vaults. My father personally, he prefers the $3,000 gun vaults to keep his arsenal in, which is a very safe, I believe, fireproof method for your firearms as well. And there's also storage cases. So there's actually plastic storage cases you can actually put padlocks on, mainly used for transporting, but they can also be used as storage medium as well. Keys and passwords to these storage units must be kept safe at all times. Obviously, never let children or anybody who you don't want handling this firearm get anywhere near the key, know where the key's at, or even get a hold of that password, because that could be a bad day for anybody holding that you don't want. Ammunition must also be stored in the appropriate containers as well, especially if you have a safe. Typically, safes are fireproof, so we'll keep those from detonating if they do catch on fire. Firearms should be double checked that they are unloaded before storage. That's very important as well. You always want to make sure, typically with me, unless I'm concealed carrying, I always make sure I unload it when it's in storage, just in case. Like I said, if I have it on me, I do make sure ammunition is there, which is the point of concealed carry. Now on to a little bit of handling safety. One of the biggest things you can do is always keep your muzzle pointed downrange. So whenever you are actually firing your firearm in just a hobby scenario, you're at a gun range, for instance, with your family, always make sure that gun is downrange. You never, in the Navy, we actually called it breaking blue. We had the shooting booths and they had the 2 walls on the side and they were both blue. And they said you never break blue. So don't ever point the firearm at those walls. Always keep them downrange. When you're done shooting, put it down. Make sure the barrel's pointing downrange. Unload when not in use, already covered that. Don't rely on your firearm safety. So many of you know there's actually there's a mechanism actually in the firearm called a safety. You can actually Google it. There are a ton of stories of safeties failing. People put too much faith in their safeties. They fail, somebody gets killed or seriously injured. Be sure of your target and what is beyond. My grandfather was horrible about this. We would go hunting, and we would go deer hunting out in the woods in Alabama. He'd see a little rustle in the bushes. He wouldn't see a deer, but he'd hear a noise, and he would pick his rifle up and shoot at it immediately, which is horrible. I mean, there could be a kid, hunting with his dad. There could be a guy out there trying to hunt with his family, and he could have shot him and they dropped dead. So that is something that's very important, is always make sure you are aware of what you're shooting at. If you experience a misfire, handle with care. Keep muzzle pointed in a safe direction and safely unload. So a misfire is basically when you shoot and it does not, you just hear a click. So the bullet doesn't fire, nothing comes out of the gun. If that is the case, safely put it down, let it sit for a few seconds. If it doesn't do anything, then unload the gun and make sure it's clear and safe. Make sure there's nothing in the barrel and there's nothing in the magazine chamber. Wear proper protection when shooting. So typically proper protection consists of eye protection. So typically, most shooting ranges, they're okay if you wear glasses like this because that will protect from any shells flying back to your face. A lot of shooting ranges will actually make you wear the protective goggles over this as well. Depends on where you go. Also wear ear protection. So there's primary and secondary protection. Primary is typically the little earmuffs you put in, like, little squishy things you actually lodge inside your earlobes. And then there's also secondary protection, which are the big earmuffs. Typically, gun ranges also require you only wear one, but in my opinion, honestly, I believe that more protection is always better. If you have the option to have 2 methods of hearing protection, obviously go for it. Assure barrel is clear of any and all obstructions. This is a big part of being a firearm owner and firearm safety as well, is always make sure your gun's clean, because there's a lot of soot, even like when they come out of the factory. Guns have to be broken in. So make sure you look through your gun, you take it apart, and you clean it properly. If you don't know how to clean it, look it up. You can Google anywhere how to clean guns properly. Don't alter or modify guns and perform regular maintenance, as I said. So don't do any kind of crazy weird thing to your gun. You're gonna kind of make some makeshift silencer or something like that. People do weird stuff. Keep to the books. If you're gonna do something to your gun, have a professional do it. And most importantly, learn your firearm. Every firearm is different. Even the same exact firearm, maybe from the same exact manufacturer, just literally different guns. They all have different feels. They all shoot differently. They all recoil differently. It is very important to learn your firearm. Make sure you know that thing inside and out, because if you learn that, it becomes a part of you. So as I said, we went over the importance of firearm safety, which is the main topic of my speech tonight. We also went over national statistics. We went over proper storage, and we also went over handling safety on the fire range. As I said earlier, firearm safety is a very important part of owning a firearm, and is something that will create a fun and loving hobby, and something that will also keep you and your family safe. I would like to thank everybody for their time tonight, and thank you for listening to my speech. Have a good night.